Welcome to November's Wigan Borough CCG governing body meeting. Sorry, just get my screen set. We've obviously got an agenda which we've published. Welcome to those who are present. If I just confirm who I can see on the meeting that we stand. So there's myself, Dr. Tim Dalton, Dr. Adam Jollis, Dr. Adam O'Marios, Professor Craig Harris, Dr. Jane Davis, Ella Bailey, Mr. Frank Costello, Julie Crossley, Linda Scott, Paul McKevitt, Peter Armour, Sally Forshaw, Tim Collins and Jen Wong, and Alexia Mitten as well, who are respected members of the governing body and officers in attendance. So I'm not aware of any apologies for absence. Tim, are there any apologies? Okay, no apologies, thank you. So are there any declarations of interest in relation to today's agenda item? If you can either signal by raising your hand or putting a comment in the chat box, that would be of help to us. Okay. As has been, actually, yes, a piece of good news has been helpfully highlighted to us. This is the first meeting of the governing body since the Queen's belated birthday honours list, where we are proud to have one of our governing body members was mentioned in that honours. So Frank did receive an MBE for his work primarily with the Wigan College, but also he's obviously worked with as a public citizen, a public servant in the borough. So congratulations to Frank on behalf of the CCG.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so there are no declarations of interest. So in regards to, we have some minutes of the meeting from the 22nd of September. Are we happy to accept those as being a true record?
Move them, Chair.
Right, thank you. And then we have some actions from that meeting. I'll make my actions appear. Tim, do you want to just take us through the actions? Sorry, you're on mute, Tim. You're still on mute, Tim. Okay, we're having some technical problems at Tim's end. So there appears to be basically learning disabilities mortality review, which will come back to a future governing body meeting, but I believe that is it as regards actions. So that would take us on to item 6, which is, well, 6.1 and 6.2. So that's Chair's key messages, accountable officers' key messages. So key message for myself, I'll keep these fairly brief, is that governing body members will be very aware that we are in the middle of a wave 2 COVID pandemic. Clearly you're very aware of the national lockdown, which followed the local tier 3 restrictions previously. The borough, since our last governing body, has had significant amounts of COVID infection within it, which has brought significant pressure onto all parts of the health and care system, be that the hospital, primary care, our communities, our nursing residential homes and our broader community services. I think the work that all of us have been doing since the last meeting is really therefore to support the borough at this time, and to support the borough with both COVID work but also with non-COVID work, and that has been our focus, to keep the services as responsive and as functional as possible at a time of huge pressure, and probably a more pressure than the wave that we had in the March-April period. I suppose my only comment, maybe in a public facing space, would be that it is really important we do continue to use the simple measures The simple public health measures of wearing a mask when required, washing your hands and keeping a distance will significantly help the NHS to not only deliver COVID care, but also make sure there is capacity to deliver non-COVID care. And what has become clear since the first wave is that we need to put equal priority onto both of those priorities. So that will be my only sort of request to our public. If I bring Professor Harris in next, and then maybe we'll open for any questions or comments about that. So Craig, are you there?
Thank you, Chair. So you've all should have been able to have sight and hopefully been able to quickly read my key accountable officers' messages. I'm going to just not go through the paper in detail, but I'm just going to try and give you an updated position, because as you can imagine, when the papers are sent out, this was a position in time, so it's probably around 10 days out of date. So if I just quickly, based on the cabinet discussion we had today, and Professor Ardern gave us an up-to-date position. So currently the borough has got cases of around about 442 per 100,000 population for the 7 days, and that's from around about the 12th of November. So that now places us out of 10 in GM, were fourth from the bottom. Our highest was, we were fighting for position only 10 days ago for first place with the highest number in GM. So we have seen a real improvement. Some of that will be due to the tier 3 restrictions. Some of it will be due to the children being on half term, and so then hopefully we are wanting to see a further reduction in the next couple of weeks as we start to see the national restriction measures and the impact of those. We're still rated red, and the number of cases now for the most common category is 56% of cases are females aged between 50 and 59. There is a variance of highest and lowest numbers of cases across some of our service delivery footprints. And we have started to see a slight increase in some of our care homes with a number of symptomatic residents that went from a very low number to just over 100. There are 13 care homes affected and around about 80 plus staff affected across the borough. So slightly concerning, but nevertheless, I think an improved position. It's worth also mentioning that WWL has seen an improved position in relation to their admissions and their flow through the system, including the ICU capacity and their ability to manage patients within the borough. So that's, again, an improving position. We have still seen our A&E receiving patients, which, as people will know from wave 1, there were some delays in people attending A&E, and where wave 1, our coronary care unit was quite low on admissions. That's now back up to expected levels. The one thing we are making sure we're getting communication out on, though, is in relation to stroke patients. We have seen those numbers dip slightly, so we're doing some joint comms with the council, the CCG and WWL regarding that. So that's the sort of COVID wave 2 position. There is also obviously the community and primary care PCM position. Some of that's included in my briefing, but if there are any questions, I can see that there are PCN leads, and Linda is here, so she can answer any of the questions in relation to that. Moving on, the staff survey, something we are pushing. This is again a moving feast. We've got until the end of this week to, we're hoping to get over 90% for our staff return rates. The overall average now is in the 70s, so it is creeping up to our response rate last year of 83.8. I've sort of put an internal challenge in. I'd like us to get to 90% or above, because I'm really keen to hear on people's experiences, especially during COVID and the last 6 months of working away from the office. So really keen on hearing all of the staff's views. I have weekly SLTs and fortnightly wider SLTs and monthly staff briefings, and I know we've done some additional briefings for clinical leads as well as board members, so hopefully they have been informative. The Greater Manchester Health and Social Care Partnership Review, I know I've briefed the governing body on some of this. This is an ongoing piece of work that was always planned to review our GM devolution arrangements. I've included some of the detail in the board paper. There is further work to be done now, and I've offered to lead on one of those work streams as an accountable officer. So I will be supporting some of the work on what the GM construct potentially will look like. Again, there is some national interest and comments made from senior leaders in the NHS. Once there is any formal information regarding any potential changes or proposed items for engagement or discussion, I will bring those back to a future governing body. And then the influenza update, again, Linda's on for some of the detail. Those figures are now out of date, as I'm sure you can imagine, but I did actually ask for an update this morning, and if you just bear with me 1 second, I shall tell you. Sorry. Our flu rates, sorry, I'm just getting to the right bit. Have improved, where we've seen over 73% of our targeted vaccinations increase. Overall, there's been a significant improvement to where we will be compared to last year, which I think is absolutely great. I know that there's been a huge turbocharged flu campaign that we wanted to make sure that we did as well as we could with regards to our flu as early as possible. So 74% uptake on the over 65s, 41.5% uptake on the 2 to 3 year olds, and 37.5% on the 65s at risk. That's an excellent position. I know some of them may feel slightly low numbers in relation to being under 50%, but overall, where we are at this point in the year, it's an excellent position. The challenges, I'm sure lots of my clinical colleagues from primary care who are here today will also support me with is the issue with regards to having vaccines in adequate supply, and we are hoping to have some further supply arriving from the national team soon. But again, overall, looking at Hindley, Lee, Liga, Swan, Tabor and Wigan in relation to the percentages, there's good coverage. It's not one of the particular STFs massively leading the way. There's really good coverage, which is great to see that it's then cross Borough. So I will pause there, Chair, and I suppose if there's any specific questions regarding any of my updates, either myself or one of the other directors can hopefully field those questions and answer them adequately.
Okay, thanks, Craig. So just open for a chance for any questions or observations from governing body members. So Marios.
Thank you, Chair. It's just an observation and a comment around the role of primary care in this, which has been very resilient in contributing in this fight, and also any comments around its state at the moment as an addition of the Chair's report.
Okay. Anyone want to respond to that? One of the leads or Linda?
Would you like me to give an overall response to that, Marios? So currently, where primary care is operating, fully functioning as it should be, all of our practices are open and providing services. Our sickness rates did increase within primary care about 2 to 3 weeks ago, but actually they are beginning to come back down, and currently, as of last week, the sickness rate across primary care was about 8% overall. That doesn't mean we haven't had isolated practices probably having more more people off sick. They have been exceptionally well supported by all of the other practices within their primary care network, and all practices have been working together to provide services. So as a result, all of our practices have provided all services as required. And just to pick up on Craig's comments, that is also a time where they have really escalated the flu vaccination programme to be at 74% for our over 65s in November against a target of 75% is absolutely outstanding. And that was on the 8th of November. I strongly suspect as soon as we get the next set of figures, we will be over that target, and the other areas will be increasing as well. So that is an excellent place to be.
Okay, Frank.
Yes, Chair, just to add in the context of flu vaccinations, I was speaking to patient representatives the other day, and they were extremely complimentary about the arrangements we'd set in train to deliver the service. And clearly that perhaps gives us an indicator as how we might handle the COVID vaccinations as and when. The second point would be to endorse the latter part of your delivery, Chair, in stressing the importance of not only managing COVID, but equally managing all other health needs as well, and ensuring that those are dealt with appropriately.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Frank. And I suppose, yeah, just for governing bodies awareness, we did deliver a number of our flu jabs through mass vaccination centres, which will be of useful learning for COVID vaccination should such a vaccine become available. Okay, I'm going to move us on to item 7, which is governing body terms of reference. Committee terms of reference. We have the papers. Is there anything particularly need to brought to our attention, Tim, to help the governing body?
Not particularly, Chair. They've obviously all been to the committees. These are the 3 statutory committees that need to report to governing body, which is why they've been brought for ratification today. Not sure if any of the chairs present want to add anything to that.
Okay.
Yes, if I may, Chair, as the Chair of Governance and Audit, just for colleagues' awareness and for the public's awareness, we have decided to bring together what was the Corporate Governance Committee and the Audit Committee into a single committee of oversight, and the first meeting of that committee takes place in the early part of December. I think it's also fair to say that as we go through the changes that we're making and we move towards an integrated organisation or a further integrated organisation, the lines get a little blurred, and they will continue to be a little blurred as we move through these changes until the final shape of the organisation is clear. And we've been exercised by that because we take our responsibilities very, very seriously in terms of governance and value for money. So we have been doing quite a bit of work on that. And just for your information, I'm attending a webinar next week from the Good Governance Organisation. There was a paper put out fairly recently, and Tim, you might be interested in reading that paper. It's about 5 pages long. It's from the Good Governance Institute, and they're starting to now pick up on the fact that obviously it's a really tricky time as we move through the corridor of change, and they have some advice in there as to how we may respond to that, which is very much in line with the stuff we've done already, actually, of our own volition. So I was quite pleased to see that. But just for information, Tim, it might be well worth you picking that up and having a look at it, and we can have a discussion maybe at a future meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other comments? So these have been through the various committees in either shadow or reality, depending on where they are in their meeting schedule. Jen?
Yes, thanks very much. It's just to do the REMCOM. This might have been discussed before, Frank, but I can't remember. It's just to do with the committee members for REMCOM. I noticed there isn't a GP within the core committee members for decision making. Maybe this was discussed, but I say if that's the case, apologies, but I don't remember that having discussed so far. And any comments on that one, Tim Collins or Frank?
Fine. Yes, Chair, in responding to that, you recall that at one time the clinicians did feature within the ranks. However, advice was that they ought not to so do, and that the present constitution, or the one before you now, reflects that fact going forward. That's not to say necessarily that clinicians don't have a part to play in that we are inclusive in the way we deal with things, but from a statutory point of view, we are following best practice.
Can I just come back to that? Yeah, by all means, we should be benchmarked against best practice. It's best for this to be communicated clearly to member practices, because CCG is still a membership organization, and it's worth for member practice to be aware that no GP is now on the decision-making exec group on remuneration of senior executives on the CCG.
Yeah, fine. Take your point there, Tim. I think for Craig as well, that's an issue we can pick up.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm hearing therefore two actions, I suppose, just for the record. So if we could share that Good Governance Institute paper with governing body members, and equally communicate that these papers, all these terms of reference have been passed, and specifically at that point with relation to the REMCOM committee membership. Are we happy to approve these terms of reference? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep. Thank you. Which takes us on to item 8, the governing body assurance framework for Q2. Has your name? Are you the speaker for this, Tim?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. So this is the assurance framework effective as at the end of September, and just to remind members of the process, I agree the content of the framework with individual directors, and then it goes to SLT as a joint oversight process to ensure that it reflects the position accurately as at the end of September. The changes that you may pick up compared to the previous version, which was at the end of June, are that we now have 7 extreme risks, and as you might imagine, this is on page 5 of the document, page 43 of the pack. As you might imagine, these are fully focused on the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, the content around the assurance, the controls, etc., has been updated because, as we mentioned already, this is a very fast-moving position. And the one risk that members may note from previous version Q1 was that we have taken off the issue around the referrals and the reduction in patient referrals and attendances, because members may recall that position did improve significantly August, September. Obviously, things have moved on again, and there may well be a change in terms of the Q3 assurance framework in looking at that risk again. The other changes on the extreme risks are in terms of finance. We had a couple of extreme risks around QIP last time. They have now been merged into one, and so this is around the success of the existing schemes and identification of new schemes. And we've now got a risk in there about the overall financial performance and allocations. And at the top of page 14, which is in the appendix, and again, this has already been referred to in our meeting so far, you'll see that we have highlighted with Linda as the lead exec on this, the potential issues that there may be with rolling out the COVID-19 vaccination programs. Obviously, great news that those are waiting to be issued, but it's going to be a huge task in rolling that number of vaccinations out. So it's just there as a marker for us all to that may well be a major risk involved in completing that task. So those were the only points I wanted to bring to the members' attention.
Okay, so are there any questions before we receive that framework? No. Okay, so if I have to summarise, we would recognise all those risks within that framework, recognise the mitigations, recognise it was a point in time that clearly it is changed in several directions, and we'll look forward to receiving the next one in due course. Which takes us on to item 9, the EPRR core standards and annual compliance statement, which again's got your name, Tim.
Yeah, so this is, members may remember, similar time last year. It comes every year. We have a self-assessment process against the national EPRR standards. We have a support manager based out of Greater Manchester Shared Services, Andrew Bidelack, who replaced the previous manager, Peter Stratton, following his retirement. He performs this and completes the self-assessment on our behalf, so that adds a level of independence from the actual EPRR team, and he's recognised in the report before you that the process is somewhat truncated this year. Obviously, we're living through a live exercise, so to speak, and have been since March as far as incident response goes. And in respect of that, the scope of the self-assessment was reduced this year. And it was brought down to basically progress made from last year's self-assessment, capturing any and embedding any learning from that, and obviously the learning that we've experienced through the initial stages and developing stages of the pandemic, and then that the learning is actively informing the winter planning. And you'll see from the report that we were able to, from last year, having had a couple of ambers in terms of presentation information to the governing body, those were met. We're able to report that those aspects are now green and have been completed. And likewise, I think Andrew has included the reports from our main providers locally, and they're also in a state of high compliance. And the other thing to just note is the statement of assurance actually in the document, which you'll see that Craig, as accountable emergency officer, will sign and before submission to NHS England. So that's for the recommendation for the governing body to accept that report from GMSS.
Okay, so are we happy to receive that, or any questions or comments before we do receive it?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Okay, so we can receive that and that will be submitted in due course. So that's really helpful, thank you. Which takes on to item 10, which is a finance report, which again is in your pack, and I think Paul's on. I can't see him.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, afternoon, everyone. So yeah, you've got the month 6 report, which is more important than normal because it marks the end of the first tranche of funding that we've had. So the governing body will be aware that under command and control, under the first 6 months of the year, our funding kind of changed. So we had a basic allocation and we could make 2 claims against that. One was against any structural underfunding against our allocation, and the second was around direct COVID costs. And we've been instructed to report financial balance, which is what you see in there. From month 7 to 12, as the governing body will be aware, with the changes that are being mooted in the NHS, we've moved to funding through an STP, Sustainability Transformation Partnership. What that means, I've done my homework, so I've just about managed to say it. What that means is we move away from a direct allocation to Wigan Borough CCG and put an allocation through Greater Manchester, and we're expected to balance as Greater Manchester. And what that sees at the moment for Wigan is we're reporting a deficit of 7 million there on month 7 to 12, but there's some caveats on that. There's about 4 million of funding that we've claimed but haven't had yet. That's traditional funding. We think about 1.3 of that million of that's through the hospital discharge programme. So we should be able to reclaim that, but we're just chasing that up now. And then what governing body will be aware of that we've had for the last 6 months is around Section 75 support. So there's about 7.8 million that we're still liaising with the NHS England around. And GM are obviously more engaged than normal because of the way we're funded now around this, but are supportive of this approach. What we've done in the meantime, and Ella's on at the call and can give you any details around that, is to look to see if we can continue to do what we've done before, which is balance as a system. So we've been talking to the council, and I'm pleased to say that we can do that. We can continue that, and I suppose that's for us to consider as a governing body how we want to use that information. As I say, as we've got to balance as Greater Manchester overall. There's a significant deficit with it at Greater Manchester. There is nationally through CCGs and providers. So to be in that position, I think is pretty strong, but it might be something we want to consider going into the ICC meeting next. We're still looking at ways of dealing with the deficit through QUIP, but more difficult because we've got a block contract with the hospital and there's other restrictions on us. But in a positive note, continuing as a system, we're able to balance. So that's where we are at the moment, and I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Okay, so if I open for any questions at this stage, so first of all from Peter.
Thank you, Chair. It was just more of a comment, actually. Thank you, Paul, for that very thorough presentation. Recently attended the first of the QUIP workshops. This year we've shown a lot of foresight, I think, in creating a QUIP committee. I think that's what it's called, Paul, isn't it? A QUIP committee. Because obviously savings and efficiency improvements, it's the job of all of us. No one is exempt from it. It's a job of all of us. So it was a really, really good session that we had as a committee. And I've got great hopes that what we'll be able to do, instead of in previous years where we've had projects placed upon us, let's say, this is actually devising them from the inside and everybody will buy into them. So I was greatly encouraged by that, and thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, just we'll bring something back to governing body around that. What's really exciting for, well, you don't get excited often as an accountant, but exciting for me is the cross system, some of the efficiencies or the programs we're going to bring. So they'll impact on the council and WWL. And I've had a really productive couple of conversations with the new director of finance around working jointly, take activity out. So I'm hopeful that, yeah, we've made a good start and hopefully we'll have something really positive to bring back.
Okay, so ring in Marios.
Thank you for the report, and it is commendable that as a system, it seems that there will be an overall break-even position. My question relates to the statement that the CCG is reporting an overall break-even position in month, and it assumes a further retrospective allocation following month 6 of 13 million. So it is more around, again, the likelihood of this allocation not coming, and if it doesn't come, what when would we start thinking how to manage this if it comes so we have a plan rather than being reactive? So that's my question.
Yeah, thanks, Marius. Yeah, I've made GM aware of the position, the caveats, as you'd appreciate, that are in the report. So we've been quite clear with GM around that. We feel we've been unfairly treated in the way our allocation was set, and also how we've been treated as a system, because we've been doing exactly what the NHS had wanted and devolution had wanted, which was to work as a partnership and find our solve our own problems. At the last meeting with NHS North, they kind of got what we'd done and got what the impact was on us and how it had been detrimental to us. So I'm hopeful that we'll see something in the next month or so. In terms of how we'd mitigate this risk, that's the work that Ella's been doing with the council. So I'm quite confident, speaking from the council side, that we could mitigate that. I've been explaining to the council what's happened to us. That's, it's been totally outside of our control, but hopefully you'll see from the governing body that they're very supportive of the work that we've done. So I'm confident as I sit here that we can mitigate those risks through carrying on the partnership work that we had done previously. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other questions or comments? I suppose maybe if I sort of summarise maybe my personal feelings on this, that as a governing body, we absolutely have to deliver our statutory duties. So I'm pleased that we lock online to deliver that. We equally need to make sure that the right amount of money that's fair and proportionate is allocated to the citizens of Wigan, and we need to continue the pressure to make sure that occurs and continues. And equally, we need to make sure that we preserve the money within the Borough of Wigan to be used for the right means that is there. And I'm pleased that we have been able to deliver that. And that, with those 3 points, I suppose, is where we can therefore consider what we do for next year as we move forwards to make sure we deliver all of those in the future. So I'm going to move us on to item 11, which is the committee board reports. Now 11.1 is the audit committee, which I think we've actually, although we tabled the June one, I think is there also the September audit committee as well? Are we receiving, Tim and Peter, is that right?
No, you're not receiving the September one, Tim. It came out too late to include in the papers.
Right.
But they'll come to the next board, so there'll probably be 2 sets of minutes at the next board. I don't think there was anything of note to report, and I should probably cover off corporate governance in Maurice's absence, and obviously I'm taking over. But I think all I'll say at this stage is that the papers are there, and I will take any questions should people have questions.
Okay, so we take the audit committee and corporate governance committee. Are there any questions about those before we receive those reports? No? Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, I'm pinging at my end. Then we have the integrated commissioning committee minutes from, which meeting is that? Are there any questions or comments about this? This is the, can't even read it, sorry. So the July meeting. Questions or comments before we receive those? No. Okay, so we can receive those. That takes us on to any other business. I'm not aware of any other business, but just give an opportunity if you want to signal or put something in the chat. Oh, that's me signaling there. Right, okay, so I'm not aware of any other business, so that would bring to an end the formal meeting.